Marcus Chen pressed his face against the cold window of the transport ship as it slowly moved toward Zenith Academy. The massive space station looked like a giant wheel spinning in the darkness of space. Bright lights covered its surface, and smaller ships moved around it like tiny insects. Marcus had never seen anything so big before. His home planet Earth seemed very small and far away now. The boy took a deep breath and checked his bag one more time. Inside were clothes from Earth, some pictures of his family, and a small wooden box his grandmother had given him. She told him it would bring him good luck. Marcus hoped she was right. He would need all the luck he could get. The transport ship docked with a loud clang that made Marcus jump. Other passengers began to stand up and gather their things. Marcus looked around at them and felt his stomach twist with worry. They were all aliens. Not one other human was on the ship. Most of them were much taller than him, with strange skin colors and eyes that glowed in the dark. Some had too many arms. Others had no arms at all. A voice came over the ship's speaker system. It spoke in the common galactic language that Marcus had been studying for 2 years. Welcome to Zenith Academy. Please follow the blue lights to the main entrance. Remember to show your student identification cards to the security guards. Marcus joined the line of students walking off the ship. The space station's halls were huge, with ceilings so high he could barely see them. Strange music played softly in the background. The air smelled like flowers he had never smelled before. Everything here was different from Earth. At the security checkpoint, Marcus handed his card to a guard who looked like a giant crab with 6 eyes. The guard scanned the card, and all 6 eyes stared at Marcus for a long moment. Then the guard made a sound that might have been laughing. A human. The guard said to another guard nearby, "Look at this, they actually sent us a human." The second guard, who had blue skin and tentacles instead of hair, leaned over to look at Marcus's card. "I heard they were sending one, but I did not believe it. Humans are so primitive. What could they possibly learn here?" Marcus felt his face turn red, but he tried to smile. "I am here to study galactic history and alien cultures," he said politely. Both guards laughed now. "Galactic history," the first guard repeated. "Child, your species just learned how to fly between stars 50 years ago. Most of the history we study here happened before your people even discovered fire." Marcus took his card back and walked through the checkpoint. Behind him, he could hear the guards still talking about humans and laughing. His first day had not even started yet, and already he felt unwelcome. The student dormitory area was just as impressive as the rest of the station. Long hallways stretched in every direction, with doors that had nameplates written in dozens of different alien languages. Marcus found his room number and pressed his palm against the scanner beside the door. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was split into 2 halves. One side had a bed, desk, and storage area that looked normal to Marcus. The other side looked very different. The bed was a strange shape, and there were tubes and wires hanging from the ceiling. This must be where his roommate would sleep. Marcus was putting his clothes away when the door opened again. A tall figure walked in, and Marcus turned to introduce himself. What he saw made him take a step backward. His roommate looked like he was made of living crystal. His body was clear and seemed to glow from inside with purple light. He was almost 7 feet tall and moved with smooth, careful steps. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. "So you are the human," the crystal being said. He did not sound happy. "I am Zextar of the Valorian Empire. My family controls trade routes through 17 star systems. And you are?" "What exactly?" "I am Marcus Chen from Earth," Marcus said, trying to sound confident. "Nice to meet you." Zextar made a sound that was definitely not nice. "Earth. Yes. I have heard of your little planet. One small world with one yellow star. Your people still use metal ships to travel through space. How quaint." Marcus wanted to say something back, but he decided to stay quiet. He had been warned that many alien species thought humans were not very smart or important. His teachers on Earth told him to be patient and try to make friends. "I hope we can get along," Marcus said instead. "Maybe you could tell me about Valorian culture. I would like to learn." Zextar walked to his side of the room and began connecting himself to the tubes and wires. Human, let me explain something to you. This academy is for the best students, from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The Valorians have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. The Thrix Empire has conquered 300 worlds. The Lumens can turn their bodies into pure energy. Purple light flowed through the tubes into Zextar's crystal body. And then there are humans. You have one small planet. Your technology is barely good enough to reach the nearest star systems. Your lifespans are so short that you die before you can learn anything useful. You are here because the Galactic Council feels sorry for your species. Marcus felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Maybe humans are not as advanced as other species, he said. But we are here to learn. Is that not what schools are for? Zextar laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. Learn, child? Most of what we study here is beyond human understanding. Your brain is too simple. Your emotions make you weak. You will struggle with even the basic classes. The crystal being turned away from Marcus and began studying something on a glowing screen. Do yourself a favor, human. Stay out of my way, and maybe you will survive your time here without embarrassing yourself too badly. Marcus unpacked the rest of his things in silence. When he opened the wooden box from his grandmother, he found a small note inside. It said, "Remember, Marcus, kindness is the greatest strength any person can have. It does not matter how others treat you. What matters is how you treat them." Marcus smiled for the first time since arriving at the academy. His grandmother had always been wise. Maybe the other students thought humans were weak and stupid. Maybe they were right about some things. But Marcus knew that humans had something that seemed rare in this galaxy. They cared about others, even strangers. He looked at a picture of his family and made a promise to himself. He would work hard in his classes. He would be kind to everyone he met, even if they were not kind to him. And maybe, just maybe, he would show these advanced alien species that humans had something valuable to offer after all. Outside his window, the stars shone brightly in the endless darkness of space. Marcus Chen from Earth was ready to begin his adventure. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus arrived at Zenith Academy. The classes were harder than anything he had ever studied on Earth, but he was slowly learning. His favorite class was Galactic History, where he learned about the great wars and peace treaties between different alien races. His least favorite was Advanced Physics, where the teacher spoke so fast that Marcus could barely understand half of what she said. The other students still treated him like he did not belong. In the dining hall, no one sat at his table except Zextar, and his roommate only complained about how humans ate their food wrong. During group projects, Marcus was always picked last, and his teammates usually ignored his ideas. Some students would point at him and whisper to their friends when they thought he was not looking. But Marcus tried to stay positive. He wrote messages to his family every few days, telling them about the amazing things he was seeing and learning. He did not tell them about how lonely he felt or how the other students treated him. He did not want his parents to worry. On a bright Thursday morning, Professor Clixara announced that their Galactic Cultures class would take a field trip to the capital city below the space station. "You will visit the Grand Market," she said, clicking her insect-like claws together. "This is where traders from across the galaxy come to buy and sell goods. You will write a report about the different cultures you observe." The students cheered with excitement. Even Marcus felt happy about getting off the space station for a while. He had only seen the city from the windows of the academy, and it looked beautiful from far away. The transport ship that took them down to the planet was much smaller than the one Marcus had arrived on. The students were packed together tightly, and Marcus found himself squeezed between a Thrix warrior with sharp spikes on his arms and a Lumen energy being who kept changing colors. Both of them acted like Marcus was not there at all. When they reached the city, Marcus gasped in wonder. The buildings were taller than mountains and made of materials that seemed to glow with their own light. Flying cars moved through the air in organized patterns, never crashing into each other. Strange music came from every direction, mixing together into a symphony that made Marcus feel like he was in a dream. The Grand Market was the most amazing place Marcus had ever seen. It stretched for miles in every direction, with thousands of shops and stalls selling things from every corner of the galaxy. There were fruits that changed color when you touched them, clothes made from starlight, and jewelry that floated in the air around the buyer. The smells were incredible too, mixing together into something that was both familiar and completely alien. Professor Clixara divided the students into groups and gave each group a different section of the market to explore. Marcus ended up in Now, a group with Zextar and 3 other students who clearly did not want him there. They walked through their assigned area quickly, taking notes and pictures for their reports while barely looking at Marcus. "Try not to embarrass our group, human," Zextar said as they approached a busy intersection. "Act like you have seen advanced civilization before, even if you have not." Marcus nodded and tried to keep up with the group. The other students walked fast, and their legs were longer than his. Soon Marcus found himself falling behind as they pushed through the crowds of alien shoppers. At the intersection, Marcus stopped to look at a street performer who was juggling balls of fire with his mind. The performance was beautiful, and Marcus watched for just a minute. When he looked around for his group, they were gone. Marcus felt panic rise in his chest. The market was huge, and all the buildings looked the same to him. He did not know which way his group had gone, and he did not have a communication device that worked on the planet. He was lost. For 20 minutes, Marcus wandered through the market looking for any sign of his classmates. The crowds were thick, and most of the aliens around him were much taller than he was. He felt very small and very alone. Finally, Marcus decided to head toward what looked like a transport station. Maybe he could find someone there who could help him contact the academy. As he walked toward the station, he passed through a quieter area where there were fewer shops and fewer people. That was when he saw her. An old woman sat on the ground near a wall, leaning against a pile of garbage bags. She was covered in dirty, torn robes that might have been white once but were now gray and brown. Her head was down and Marcus could not see her face clearly, but he could see that she was very thin. In front of her was a small cup with a few coins in it. As Marcus got closer, he heard her speaking in a weak voice. "Please," she said to the people walking by. "Just a little food. Or a few credits. I have not eaten in 2 days." Most of the aliens walking past did not even look at her. A few dropped small coins into her cup without stopping. One, well-dressed Valorian, actually stepped over her legs like she was just another piece of garbage. Marcus stopped walking and looked at the old woman. She seemed so fragile and sad. Her hands were shaking, and her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus felt his heart hurt just looking at her. Behind him, Marcus heard familiar voices. His group had found him. "There you are, human," Zextar called out loudly. "We have been looking everywhere for you. Do you have any idea how much trouble you could have caused us?" The other students in the group were laughing as they approached. When they saw what Marcus was looking at, they laughed even harder. "Oh, this is perfect," said Nixara, a Thrick student with bright blue skin. "Look at the human staring at that pathetic beggar. Are you going to start crying, Earth Boy?" "I heard humans get emotional about the strangest things," added Velmon, a young lumen whose body was glowing bright yellow with amusement. "Maybe he thinks that old creature is cute or something." Zextar stepped up beside Marcus and looked down at the beggar with disgust. "This is exactly what I mean about humans," he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "They waste time feeling sorry for genetic dead weight. Any intelligent species would just ignore such useless creatures." Marcus felt anger building inside him, but not at the beggar. He was angry at his classmates for being so cruel. The old woman had not done anything wrong. She was just asking for help. "Look," Nixara said, pointing at Marcus. "I think the human is actually going to help her. This is too funny. Someone record this." Velmon activated a recording device built into his arm. "This will be great to show everyone back at the academy. The primitive human boy helping street garbage." Marcus looked at his classmates, then at the old woman, then back at his classmates. He thought about what his grandmother had written in her note. He thought about what his parents had taught him about treating other people with kindness. He thought about what was right. Marcus knelt down beside the old woman and gently touched her shoulder. She looked up at him with eyes that seemed much older and wiser than her frail body suggested. For just a moment, Marcus thought he saw something strange in those eyes, like stars reflecting in deep water. "Are you hungry?" Marcus asked softly. The old woman nodded. "Very hungry, young one, and very tired." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his meal allowance card and the emergency credits his parents had given him before he left Earth. It was all the money he had. "Here," he said, placing both cards in the woman's shaking hands. "Please buy yourself some food and find a safe place to rest." Behind him, his classmates were laughing so hard that other people in the market were starting to stare. Someone was making jokes about how stupid humans were. Someone else was talking about how this proved that Earth people were too emotional to be truly intelligent. Marcus ignored them all. He helped the old woman stand up and walked with her to a nearby bench. She moved very slowly, and Marcus could tell that every step hurt her. "Thank you, young one," she said when they reached the bench. "You have a kind heart. That is very rare in this galaxy." "Everyone deserves help when they need it," Marcus said simply. "That is what my family taught me." The old woman smiled at him, and again Marcus thought he saw something unusual in her eyes. "Your family taught you well. What is your name, child?" "Marcus Chen from Earth." "Marcus Chen from Earth," she repeated slowly, like she was memorizing it. "I will remember that name." Professor Klixara's voice called out from across the market area. It was time for the students to return to the transport ship. Marcus had to go. "I hope you feel better soon," Marcus told the old woman. "I will," she said. "Thanks to you." Marcus rejoined his group, who were still laughing and making jokes about what they had just witnessed. Zextar patted Marcus on the head like he was a small child. "Well, human," Zextar said, "you have just proved everything I said about your species. Too emotional, too soft, and too stupid to understand that resources should not be wasted on the weak." Marcus did not say anything back. He just looked over his shoulder one more time at the old woman sitting on the bench. She was watching him leave, and she raised one shaking hand to wave goodbye. Marcus waved back and smiled. He did not care what his classmates thought. He had done the right thing, and that was all that mattered. 2 weeks after the field trip, Marcus was sitting in his room working on homework when Zexitar burst through the door. His crystal body was glowing much brighter than usual, which meant he was very excited about something. "Human, you will not believe what just happened," Zextar said, his voice ringing like bells. "The greatest news in 1,000 years." Marcus looked up from his galactic history report. "What news?" "Her Imperial Majesty Velnara the Eternal is coming here, to this academy, in 3 days." Zextar was practically vibrating with excitement. "The Queen of the Thessarian Empire is going to visit us." Marcus had heard of the Thessarian Empire in his history classes, but he did not know much about them. "Who are they exactly?" he asked. Zextar stared at Marcus like he had just asked what water was. "You really are primitive, are not you? The Thessarians are the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Their empire is bigger than all other empires combined. They have technology that seems like magic to the rest of us." Zextar began pacing around the room, his crystal feet clicking on the floor. "The Thessarian Queen has ruled for over 3,000 years. Some say she is immortal. Others say she can read minds and see the future. No one knows for sure because almost no one has ever met her." "Why is she coming here?" Marcus asked. "No one knows," Zextar replied. "The message just said she wanted to visit the academy and meet the students. This has never happened before. Thessarian royalty never travels to other worlds unless something very important is happening. Over." The next 3 days, the entire academy went crazy with preparation. Every surface was cleaned until it sparkled. The walls were repainted. New decorations were hung everywhere. The teachers held emergency meetings about proper behavior and protocol. Students were given strict rules about how to act when the Queen arrived. They had to stand in perfect lines organized by species and importance. They could not speak unless spoken to. They had to bow at exactly the right angle when she entered the room. Any student who broke the rules would be expelled immediately. Marcus noticed that in all the planning, He was placed at the very back of the assembly hall behind all the other species. The academy leaders seemed to hope the queen would not notice that a primitive human was studying there. It makes sense, Zextar explained as they practiced the ceremony for the 10th time. Humans are the least important species here. The queen should see the advanced civilizations first. Marcus did not argue, but he felt hurt. Even when something exciting happened, he was reminded that everyone considered him worthless. On the ideal morning of the visit, Marcus woke up early and put on his best clothes. These were the formal Earth clothes his mother had packed for special occasions. Compared to the elegant outfits the alien students wore, Marcus knew he looked plain and simple. The students gathered in the great assembly hall 2 hours before the queen was supposed to arrive. The hall was the largest room in the academy, with a ceiling so high it seemed to disappear into darkness. At the front of the room was a raised platform where the queen would stand. Marcus found his place at the very back of the hall. He was so far from the platform that he could barely see it. Around him, the alien students whispered nervously about what the queen might want. Some worried that she was coming to judge their species. Others hoped she would offer them positions in the Thessarian government. "I heard she can kill you just by looking at you," whispered a Thric student near Marcus. "My father told me she once destroyed an entire planet because someone was rude to her," added a Valorian. "They say her ships are so big they can block out the sun," said a Lumen student whose body was flickering with nervous energy. Marcus listened to all these stories and felt more worried by the minute. What if this powerful queen decided that humans did not belong in the galaxy at all? What if she ordered Earth to be destroyed? At exactly noon, alarms began ringing throughout the academy. Through the great windows of the assembly hall, everyone could see massive ships approaching the space station. The ships were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. They seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed like water. Strange lights moved across their surfaces in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The largest ship was bigger than the entire academy. As it got closer, Marcus could see smaller ships flying around it in perfect formation. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Look at the size of that fleet," breathed Zextar, who was standing several rows ahead of Marcus. "They could conquer this entire star system without even trying." The ships docked with the academy, and the students could feel the station shaking slightly from their massive weight. Then everything went quiet. The nervous whispers stopped. Even the air seemed to hold still. Professor Klixara, who was in charge of the ceremony, walked to the front of the hall. Her insect-like body was trembling as she spoke. "Students of Zenith Academy," she announced, "we are about to witness history. Her Imperial Majesty Velnara the Eternal, Supreme Sovereign of the Thessarian Empire, Keeper of Ancient Wisdom, and Protector of 10,000 Worlds will now honor us with her presence." The great doors at the front of the hall began to open. They moved slowly and silently, and as they opened, a strange humming sound filled the air. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating through the floor and walls and into the bones of everyone present. First came the guards. They walked in perfect lines, wearing armor that seemed to bend light around itself. Marcus could not tell what species they were because their faces were hidden behind helmets that looked like polished mirrors. Each guard carried weapons that glowed with energy Marcus did not recognize. Behind the guards came beings in flowing robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight. They carried staffs topped with crystals that pulsed with power. These must be the Queen's advisors or court officials. Then the temperature in the room dropped. Not cold like winter on Earth, but cold like the emptiness of space itself. Several students near the front of the hall fainted and had to be quietly carried away by Academy medical staff. The Queen's presence could be felt before she could be seen. It was like standing near a powerful electrical storm or looking into the depths of a black hole. Marcus felt his heart beating faster, and his hands began to shake. And then she appeared. Queen Velnara the Eternal walked through the doors, and Marcus felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. She was tall and graceful, moving like she was floating rather than walking. Her robes seemed to contain entire galaxies, with stars twinkling in their depths. On her head was a crown that appeared to be made of crystallized time itself, but it was her face that made Marcus gasp in shock, even beneath the regal bearing and the glow of power that surrounded her. Marcus recognized those eyes. They were the same eyes that had looked at him with gratitude when he helped the beggar in the market. The same eyes that had seemed to hold ancient wisdom and hidden depths. The frail old woman who had been begging for food was Queen Velnara the Eternal, the most powerful being in the galaxy. Marcus felt dizzy as the truth hit him. He had given his meal money to the Queen of the Thessarian Empire. He had helped her stand up and walked with her to a bench. He had treated the most important person in the galaxy like she was just another person who needed help. The Queen walked slowly across the platform, her eyes scanning the assembled students. When her gaze moved toward the back of the hall, Marcus tried to make himself smaller. He hoped she would not see him. He hoped she would not remember him. He was just a human boy who had been kind to a stranger. Surely the Queen of the Galaxy had more important things to think about. But as her eyes found his across the vast hall, Queen Velnara smiled. It was the same gentle smile she had given him in the market, but now it seemed to contain the power of stars, the smile of someone who held the fate of worlds in her hands. Marcus realized that his life, and possibly the life of everyone on Earth, was about to change forever. The Queen raised one hand and the entire hall fell into absolute silence. Even the humming stopped. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, speaking directly into the mind of every person present. "I have walked among you," she said, and her words carried the weight of eternity, "and I have learned much." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to prepare himself for whatever was about to happen next. Queen Velnara stood on the platform for a long moment, looking out at all the students. The silence in the hall was so complete that Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. Around him, the alien students were frozen in place, too afraid to move, even a finger. "I have a story to tell you," the Queen said, her voice flowing through the hall like music. "It is a story about a test that I gave to this galaxy, a test that most of you failed." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He knew what story she was going to tell. The Queen began to walk slowly across the platform as she spoke. 3 weeks ago, I took the form of an old beggar woman and went to the Grand Market below this station. I sat in the street, hungry and cold, asking for help from anyone who would listen. Several students near the front of the hall began to look nervous. Marcus noticed that some of them had been on the same field trip he was on. "For 6 hours I sat in that market," the Queen continued. "Thousands of beings walked past me. Valorians. Inexpensive clothes stepped over my legs like I was garbage. Thrix warriors looked at me with disgust. Lumen energy beings changed their colors to show how much they disliked seeing me there." The Queen stopped walking and turned to face the students directly. "Rich traders dropped small coins in my cup without looking at my face. Shop owners told me to move away from their stores. Security guards threatened to arrest me for disturbing the peace." Marcus could see some of his classmates starting to sweat. They were remembering the day at the market, and they were realizing they had seen the beggar woman too. "But then," the Queen said, and her voice became warmer, "something wonderful happened." One person stopped. One being looked at me and saw not garbage or a problem to be solved, but another living creature who needed help. The Queen's eyes found Marcus at the back of the hall. Even from so far away, he could feel the power of her gaze. This person knelt beside me and asked if I was hungry. When I said yes, he gave me his meal money and his emergency credits, all the money he had. He helped me stand up when I was too weak to stand alone. He walked with me to a safe place to rest. The other students were starting to turn around, looking toward the back of the hall. They were trying to figure out who the Queen was talking about. "While this person was helping me," the Queen continued, "his classmates stood nearby laughing at him. They called him stupid for caring about a worthless beggar. They said he was too primitive to understand that resources should not be wasted on the weak. They recorded his kindness, so they could show others and laugh about it later." Marcus felt his face burning with embarrassment. Everyone in the hall was looking at him now. Zextar had turned around completely and was staring at Marcus with his crystal mouth hanging open. Queen Velnara raised her hand, and suddenly Marcus felt himself being lifted off the ground. He floated gently through the air, moving over the heads of all the other students. He landed softly on the platform beside the Queen. Marcus had never been so scared in his life. Up close, the Queen's power was overwhelming. He could feel energy crackling around her like lightning. Her crown seemed to contain actual stars that were being born and dying. When she looked at him, Marcus felt like she could see into his very soul. "This is Marcus Chen of Earth," the Queen announced to the assembly. "The being who showed kindness to a stranger when everyone else showed cruelty." Marcus tried to speak, but no words came out. His mouth was too dry and his heart was beating too fast. The Queen placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Do not be afraid, young one. You have done nothing wrong. In fact, you have done something very right." She turned back to address the other students. "For 3,000 years I have ruled the Thessarian Empire. In that time, I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen species that reached incredible heights of technology and science. I have also seen those same species destroy themselves through cruelty and pride." The Queen's voice grew darker. "Power without compassion leads to evil. Intelligence without kindness leads to destruction. I have seen it happen again and again across the galaxy." Marcus noticed that many of the students were starting to look worried. Some of the Valorian nobles near the front were shaking. "That is why I came here in disguise," the Queen explained. "I wanted to test the next generation of galactic leaders. I wanted to see which species had learned the most important lesson of all." She gestured to the assembled students. "Most of you failed completely. You saw someone in need and you ignored them. Some of you were actively cruel. You proved that your advanced technology has not made you advanced beings." A Thrix student near the front fell to his knees. "Your Majesty, please forgive us. We did not know it was you." The Queen's eyes flashed with anger. "That is exactly the problem. You think kindness should only be shown to those who are important. You think compassion is only required when you might get something in return." The temperature in the hall dropped even further. Several more students fainted. "But this human boy," the Queen said, her voice becoming warm again as she looked at Marcus, "showed kindness to someone he thought was a helpless stranger. He gave up his own comfort to help another being. He did this while his classmates mocked him for it." Marcus finally found his voice. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I was just doing what my family taught me to do. Anyone would have helped." The Queen smiled at him. "No, Marcus Chen of Earth, anyone would not have helped. That is what makes your actions so special." She turned back to the assembly. "I have been watching your species for 50 years, since you first began traveling between the stars. Most galactic civilizations dismissed humans as primitive and unworthy of attention. But I saw something in your species that gave me hope." The Queen walked to the edge of the platform. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. You are not the smartest or the most technologically advanced. But you have something that many older species have lost. You still remember how to care about strangers." Marcus heard gasping from the assembly. Some students were starting to realize what the Queen was leading up to. "Throughout your history," the Queen continued, "humans have shown remarkable compassion. When disasters strike, you help each other regardless of what country or race the victims belong to. When you see suffering, many of you try to stop it, even when it costs you personally." The Queen raised her hand toward the ceiling. "This quality is so rare in the galaxy that when I see it, I must protect it and help it grow." Marcus felt energy flowing through him from the Queen's touch. It did not hurt, but it was like being struck by gentle lightning. He could feel something changing inside him, though he did not understand what. "Marcus Chen of Earth," the Queen said formally, "by your actions in the market 3 weeks ago, you have proven that humanity deserves a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy." The hall erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Marcus could see Zextar staring at him with an expression of complete disbelief. "Therefore," the Queen announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "I am granting humanity the protection and patronage of the Thessarian Empire." The whispers turned into loud exclamations of shock. Marcus heard someone scream. A few students actually fainted and hit the floor. Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. "Your Majesty," he said, "I do not understand." "What does that mean?" The Queen smiled at him like a proud grandmother. It means, young Marcus, that your species will have access to our medical technology, our educational resources, and our protection. Any being who threatens Earth or humanity will have to answer to the Thessarian Empire. She looked out at the assembly of students, many of whom looked like they were about to be sick. And it means, the Queen added, that the species who mocked this boy for his kindness will now have to explain to their governments why they insulted the newest allies of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Marcus looked out at his classmates and saw a mixture of fear, shock, and regret on their faces. Zextar looked like his crystal body might shatter from stress. The Queen squeezed Marcus's shoulder gently. Sometimes, young one, the smallest acts of kindness have the biggest consequences. You helped an old woman get something to eat. In return, you have changed the fate of your entire species. Marcus thought about his family back on Earth, and about all the humans who had no idea that their lives had just changed forever. All because a boy had been kind to a stranger. The great assembly hall remained silent for several long moments after the Queen's announcement. Marcus could see the shock on every alien face in the crowd. Some students were still trying to understand what had just happened. Others looked like they wanted to run away and hide. Queen Velnera turned to Marcus with a smile that seemed to contain the warmth of 1,000 suns. "Marcus Chen of Earth," she said formally, "I hereby name you the first human ambassador to the Thessarian Empire. You will speak for your species in matters concerning our alliance." Marcus felt dizzy. "Your Majesty, I am just a student. I do not know anything about being an ambassador. I am only 16 years old." The Queen laughed, and the sound was like silver bells ringing in a gentle breeze. "Age means nothing when wisdom is present. You showed wisdom beyond your years when you helped a stranger in need. That is the kind of wisdom that makes a good ambassador." She waved her hand, and suddenly Marcus felt different. The energy that had been flowing through him settled into his bones, and he could feel knowledge entering his mind. Languages he had never heard before became as familiar as his native English. Facts about galactic politics and trade agreements filled his thoughts. "I have given you the knowledge you will need," the Queen explained. "But the most important thing you bring to this role is the same compassion you showed in the market." Marcus looked out at the assembly of students and saw that many of them were crying. Not tears of joy, but tears of fear and regret. They were beginning to understand what they had lost by mocking him. Zextar raised his crystal hand shakily. "Your Majesty," he said in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "May I speak?" The Queen nodded. Zextar stepped forward, his whole body trembling. "I was one of the students who laughed at Marcus in the market. I called him stupid for helping the beggar. I said humans were too primitive to understand proper resource management." His voice got quieter with each word. "I was wrong. Completely wrong." Other students began stepping forward as well. Nixara, the Thrix who had suggested recording Marcus's kindness, was openly sobbing. "I made fun of him," she admitted. "I said only a primitive species would waste time on genetic deadweight. I am so sorry." Velmon, the Lumen student who had actually recorded the incident, stepped forward next. His body was flickering between colors rapidly, showing how upset he was. "I have the recording still," he said. "I was going to show it to everyone and laugh about it. Instead, I have recorded the moment that changed galactic history." One by one, students came forward to apologize. Some fell to their knees in front of Marcus. Others begged the Queen for forgiveness. Many were crying so hard they could barely speak. Marcus felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He looked up at the Queen. "Your Majesty, they do not need to apologize to me. They were just taught to think differently." The Queen nodded approvingly. "Even now you show mercy to those who were cruel to you. This is exactly why humanity deserves our protection." She turned to address the apologizing students. "Rise," she commanded. "Your apologies are noted, but they are not enough. Actions have consequences. Your species will need to work very hard to repair their relationships with humanity." Professor Clixara, who had been standing frozen at the side of the platform, finally found her voice. "Your Majesty," she said nervously, What does this mean for the Academy? The Queen considered this question carefully. Zenith Academy will become the first institution to teach human studies as a required course. All students will learn about human culture, history, and values. Perhaps if they understand humans better, they will not make the same mistakes again. She gestured to Marcus. Ambassador Chen will help design this curriculum. Human compassion will be taught alongside mathematics and science. The idea that Marcus would help teach other species about humanity made him feel proud and scared at the same time. He thought about his parents and wondered what they would say when they learned their son had become an ambassador. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. In the market, when I helped you, you said I had a kind heart and that it was rare in the galaxy. Are there really so few beings who help strangers?" The Queen's expression became sad. "More rare than you might think, young Marcus. As species become more technologically advanced, many of them lose their capacity for simple kindness. They begin to see compassion as weakness. They start to believe that only the strong deserve to survive." She looked out at the assembly of students. "This is why the Thessarian Empire exists. We protect species that still remember how to care for others, and we guide species that have forgotten, helping them remember their better nature." Marcus nodded, beginning to understand. "So by helping you, I was not just helping one person. I was showing that humans still remember how to be kind." "Exactly," the Queen said. "And that is why your species has earned our protection." She turned back to the assembly. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Power and technology mean nothing without wisdom and compassion. The human species may seem primitive to you, but they have something your advanced civilizations have lost." The Queen raised her hand, and suddenly the air shimmered around Marcus. He felt himself changing, becoming stronger and more confident. "I am granting you certain abilities that will help you in your role as ambassador," she explained. "You will live much longer than normal humans. You will be able to communicate with any species instantly, and you will be protected from those who might wish you harm." Marcus felt the changes settling into his body. He could suddenly understand every language being whispered in the hall. He could sense the emotions of every student present. Most of them felt ashamed and frightened. "Now," the Queen said, "I must return to my empire. There is much work to be done to formalize humanity's new status. Ambassador Chen, you will come with me to learn your duties." Marcus felt excited and terrified. "What about school? What about my classmates?" The Queen smiled. "You will return to complete your education, but now you will study as an equal, not as a member of a primitive species. Your classmates will learn to treat you and all humans with the respect you deserve." She looked at Zextar, who was still standing near the platform looking miserable. "Your roommate has learned an important lesson today. Perhaps you can help him understand what true strength really means." Zextar looked up at Marcus with crystal tears in his eyes. "Marcus, I am so sorry. Can you ever forgive me?" Marcus walked over to his roommate and put a hand on his crystal shoulder. "Of course I forgive you, Zextar. Maybe now we can be real friends." The Queen watched this exchange with approval. "This is why humans will succeed where others have failed. You show mercy even to those who hurt you." As the Queen prepared to leave, she made one final announcement. The recording that Velmon made of Marcus helping the beggar will be sent to every government in the galaxy. Let all beings see what true nobility looks like. It is not about how much power you have or how advanced your technology is. It is about how you treat those who cannot help you in return. The Queen and Marcus walked toward the great doors together. Just before they left the hall, Marcus turned back to look at his classmates one more time. They were all watching him with a mixture of awe, regret, and respect. "I will be back," Marcus called out to them, "and when I return, I hope we can all learn from each other." As they walked through the doors, the Queen said quietly, "You know, Marcus, in 3,000 years of ruling, I have rarely seen such genuine kindness. Your parents raised you well." Marcus smiled. "They always told me that how we treat others is the true measure of who we are." "Wise parents," the Queen agreed. "No wonder their son changed the galaxy." Later that evening, Marcus sat in his new quarters aboard the Queen's flagship. writing a message to his family on Earth. He wrote, "Mom and Dad, remember how you always taught me to help people when they need it, even if they are strangers? Well, today I learned that sometimes helping one person can change everything. I helped an old woman who was hungry, and it turns out she was the most powerful person in the galaxy. Now humanity is protected by the greatest empire that has ever existed, all because I remembered what you taught me about kindness. The other students here used to think humans were weak because we care about others. Now they are learning that caring about others is actually our greatest strength. I am going to help teach them about human compassion and show them that being kind is not the same as being weak. I miss you both, and I cannot wait to come home and tell you everything. But first I have work to do as Earth's first ambassador to the stars. Do not worry about me. I am exactly where I am supposed to be, doing exactly what you raised me to do, helping others and making the galaxy a little bit kinder. Love always. Your son Marcus. P.S. Grandma was right about that lucky wooden box. It really did bring me good luck. The best kind of luck there is, the chance to do the right thing when it really mattered.